Dez Green, thank you very much for coming on the Pay to Play podcast.
Thank you.
So, tell me, what are you digging right at the moment? What's been bringing a smile to your face lately?
Usually, my soundtracks, my movies. I've been a Doctor Who fan since birth, and I really dig science fiction movies, but good science fiction movies.
Oh, absolutely. You and me both.
Yeah. I love John Carpenter. Comes up and rewatching some of the old classics. So yeah, that's what I do.
So what have you been lately? What have you been rewatching?
John Carpenter's The Thing, and They Live. So it's to keep my juices going with Dimension Man, because Dimension Man is inspired mostly by John Carpenter's films. So I still love Red Dwarf. So again, with Red Dwarf, the characters in my movie are the rule of three characters.
Yeah.
So that came out of 80s movies like Ghostbusters, all those.
Yeah, that whole thing of, I guess with Red Dwarf, it was Lister, Rimmer and the Cat, at least at first, before they brought Crichton on full time. Yeah. And Ghostbusters, Venkman, Stanton, Spengler. And they were sort of, so look, tell us a little bit more about Dimension Man. I mean, I first heard about it a little while back when there was talk of it in the Cairns Post, and I get the feeling it's your pet project.
Yeah.
It's...
It started as an idea, I think, from high school, so that was like 30 years ago. But as I've gotten older, it's something that, it's one of my ideas. It's like a very old wine that you leave until you get older, and now it's sort of matured. The idea has matured, and as I matured, those are the concept, your concept of the world, and the stories that you write from when you were a teenager, and as you get older, you view the world in a different way, and so you absorb the world around you into your stories, which is seen in a lot of movies, with very with top directors like. I wouldn't say Spielberg. John Carpenter and other directors like he directed the Naked Lunch. David Lynch.
Yes, of course, David Lynch.
Yeah. So there a lot of I'm trying to put a lot of social commentary in there, but without making it too blatant or obvious. Yeah. And audiences are smart. They can pick up on that anyway. Yeah,
you don't need to clobber them over the head with it. Just tell them an entertaining story, and they'll pick up the rest or not.
Not like a Michael Bay movie where he just throws it in your face. It's like it's like oh no, Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Although I do love his visual eye candy. It's basically he does very good eye candy.
He does.
I take a lot of inspiration from Hollywood films, not in it, as I've gotten older, probably not. More independent movies, artistic directors like David Lynch and Scorsese. Yeah. Which is they're very character driven. So I'm going to try and develop that in my movies, character driven movies. Yeah. But this is my first venture into making a film. So I'm starting at the bottom, so as I go along I can start to develop, because the three characters, I haven't given them, in my universe, that nobody has last names, they're just names. So it's Sam, Zane and Peter, and sometimes minor characters won't have a name. Occasionally you'll hear it, but it's like the cook, the amazing cook, will just be called the cook, until one of the characters will ask him his name. And I'll think up the stupidest name.
And in the meantime, they'll probably just go, "Oh yeah, go ask the cook," or "Yeah, did you see the cook over there?" sort of thing. And yeah,
or that guy.
Yeah. So, how long have you? Can you remember? I don't know, the first time that you actually sort of discovered your love of movies? Because do you remember the first movie that you know sort of saw? I guess as a youngster that really made an impression on you, or
I can remember it so back. So I'm 45 now.
Yeah.
So I remember King Kong, but I remember very vaguely. Before I saw it as an adult, I remember I just saw this big hairy thing with eyes, and then as I got older, that's the movie I saw. King Kong. But I grew up on the '77 version.
The one with Jeff Bridges in it.
Yes, I love that because it's so badly done in the '70s, but I love it. It's so blue screeny. It's
I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing that again sometime, just because it's Jeff Bridges in it, and I always remember him telling one of the other characters in it, and I can't really remember any of the rest of the movie, but just him saying, "That's not a hole, that's a footprint."
And the guy falls in and he goes, "What do you mean? Look at me." And then he goes, who do you think made that? A guy in a suit? So. What I love about the movie here and there, the movie doesn't take itself too seriously. Yeah. And see, I'm a dictionary of film facts. I know just about most actors from the 60s, 70s and 80s.
Oh, right.
So I'll give you an example. I can tell you most of the cast of that movie. From the director to the composer. Okay.
Now, who was the Fay Wray? Who played the Fay Wray character?
Jessica Lange.
Jessica Lange,
in her very first role, and it was very hard to watch because she wasn't a good actor. No. But I love the fact that she couldn't act. It adds to the fun of it.
Yeah.
But I love to get that. You just want to grind your teeth.
Yeah.
Charles Grodin.
Yeah.
Yep. He was the oil. Exxon or whatever the company is. But there's a few familiar faces. One guy from Benson, the guy that pulls in mispronounces his name.
Oh, damn it. I remember watching Benson as a youngster, but I can't... hang on a second. Was it Rene Auberjonois who was in Benson?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. The director was known for making those Towering Inferno. Now I've forgotten his name. But, it'll come to me. But he was known for making those big epic, Towering Inferno. Owen Allen type movies. Not Terry Gilliam. He had a name like. But anyway. So I have a love for films, but especially film music.
Yeah.
Orchestrals, the scores that accompany them, as long as they're good.
Yeah.
So, for me, like when I go see a movie, the movie and the music are one thing. I can't separate the two.
That's interesting because I think for a lot of us it's a tricky thing because movie scores, especially when you listen to them back afterward, can be absolutely brilliant, but half the time, unless it really goes out of its way to make an impression on you.
Unless you're John Williams.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, for example, I guess I was born in 1977, so I was born in the year that Star Wars came out. I mean, but you'd sort of think that after the movie, if you asked anyone about the music that they heard during it, they'd be able to give you the opening theme of Star Wars, and then that might be about it.
I'm that
it's
guy.
Sort of like, yeah. But later on, or I guess if you noticing it, you would have noticed the individual things like Ben's theme and Leia's theme and all those wonderful little bits and pieces that went up to making that movie. And it's just this interesting relationship. I mean, I went and saw Pacific Rim. It came out on my birthday a few years ago in Australia.
It's a Michael Bay, isn't it?
No, Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, good, yeah.
Yeah, and that movie, I couldn't quite remember it afterward, but I knew there was a musical hook in it that sort of absolutely made an impression on me because it was it sort of set the tone, almost the tone of as it showed the two brothers gearing up for to get into the giant robot Gypsy Danger to go battle the giant monster. It had this sort of very kind of steady, yeah, don't worry about this, folks, we've got it, we're good, we've got it under control kind of thing that of course got undone later. And I actually remember enjoying the music particularly, and I think that was one of the reasons why one of the first things, as soon as Pacific Rim soundtrack came out, I got my hands on it just to remember what that piece of music was.
It had that Top Gun moment.
Yeah, kind of.
So I think I know the comedian. His name's Steven Jablonski. He does all the Transformers movies, but he comes under the tutorial of Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of complaints about him. They say he's a ghost composed. Composed by Hans Zimmer.
Right.
But if you enjoy the music,
yeah. Oh, actually, in Pacific Rim was Ramin Djawadi.
Yeah.
Who has done a couple of other. He did Iron Man as well. He scored that, which again has a couple of wonderful bits of music in it. But so look, anyway, enough about us geeking about music soundtracks. But you are making your own movie. When did you actually sort of first pick up a camera and start seriously, learning it and thinking about, all right, I want to do this. How do I, and starting making your own pieces?
I started daydreaming about doing that when I was as young as about 12. I watched these movies on in Cairns in the 80s we only had 2 channels, NQTV and ABC TV.
Yeah.
So Saturday night, the Saturday night movie, always look forward to that. And a movie would come on, and Terminator would come on.
Yeah.
And because you only had one commercial channel, that was the buzz in the school ground. And you go, guess what's on Saturday?
Yeah. So,
and I miss that. You don't get that anymore. It's already prepackaged and it's out there before anyone sees it. But anyway, it's ever since I was any movie that came on TV like Terminator, and I used to play with that idea in my mind how I would like to do it in my mind.
Yeah.
And when I got to high school, I left Cairns to go finish high schooling in Brisbane. They had a class, social media class. There was one that was the first actual venture into using a camera. And because I used to visualize myself making a movie. Once I got my hand on that camera, the project was, the teacher said, a group of 3, 1 camera between each group, and she said we have to create our own news program with logo, music and direction. And I put my hand up straight away. I said, I'll do all of those. And artistically I can draw. So I designed the logo, which sat in the back of one of the reporters, and it was called In Vision News. So, and I had that, and the teacher said, you did that? I said, yep, no problem. So I took control of the camera, director, and I was one that had to be a news reporter as well.
Right.
So I knew how to position the camera just by observation.
Yeah.
All those years from as a kid, just observation. We could use any music, but I didn't have any software at that time.
Yeah.
Of my own. So I used one of my James Bond soundtracks. And I found on one of the Bond, A View to a Kill, there's a drum roll at the end with the snares, and it sounds like a news theme.
Okay.
So I used it in the end of our little news program, and I did. I got a taller roll and used that as a titles with the music in the back, and I said just negative the picture, and I did it, ad-libbed everything, and they just went with it. So, and then we got our marks later.
Yeah.
and I was quite, proud of that. So our group got 9 out of 10. So because I had a technical mind back then from observation, and I got some buzz from that. So from that, but there was a 20-year gap. Oh no, there was. So after that was done, I realised I'm really good at putting video together.
Yeah.
But there was a rest, being a young person, I left high school. I was a bit of a tearaway, and I ended up living with a youth organisation.
Yeah.
And I ended up living there, and I became their star pupil. And the workers saw that I had a thing. I was artistic, and I had a thing. Video camcorders created. And it was since 1995. I was with this group from 1990 to 1995. I was granted a traineeship. Multimedia trainee was the title.
Yeah.
And that was the most prestigious thing I ever got. It was a job, my first job. And to me that was prestigious. That's like being chosen by Hollywood to be the number one director.
Yeah.
In my mind it was, in my own lunchbox. But so that was my first. The internet just came in.
Yeah.
The new software came in where you could, digital video first came in. You could just edit on it digitally.
Yeah, instead of having to cut film.
Yeah.
As it were, yeah.
And I just realised I just realised now. I didn't realise then we're at the dawn of that. So 1995 was the beginning of my digital creativity into film. And then there was another gap, and didn't finish that. I wanted to do young people things like party and.
As you do.
Of course, I said, I should have stuck at it. But anyway, I guess that big gap from 1995 up until 2009. So there was. Became more settled down. Yeah. I came back to Cairns, and it took me quite a while to get this place. Been here 3 years now. I was with went to TAFE here, did a performing arts course. I met a lovely lady named Avril Duck, and she owns Tropical Arts.
Right.
Shakespeare at the Tanks.
Oh, fantastic.
So she was doing that then, and then doing this performance course. And she usually I show off. But she said, "Oh, Dez, you play music?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Oh, would you like to compose some stuff for Shakespeare?" I said, "Yep, I'd love to." And it just went from there. And the first Shakespeare was Merchant of Venice. And then I was an actor. No, I wasn't an actor. No, I just did the score. That was my first time I designed a full score.
Yeah.
Not in the Hollywood sense, but in the theatrical. So, and it just went from there. I did acting, composing, and videographer. And where I am now, it's because of Avril Duck. Tropical Arts funded me some equipment. Video camera. The camera itself is $10,000. The equipment is $15,000 or something like that. So I'm forever grateful to Avril Duck.
Yeah.
If she's listening. And I don't think I would be anywhere without Tropical Arts. So I had to did that, and then out of that came another thing.
Yeah.
And so I created so I do videography for them. They made a contract, they got all this equipment for me. In return for using the camera to make a bit of money on the side, I do Tropical Arts videography for free. Yeah. And that's a very good partnership with Tropical Arts. So that's so out of that I created a name. I had to give myself a name. Very handheld productions, because it started with a camcorder.
Yeah.
and they needed to get me proper equipment. So, I was just, let's just keep that name. It's quite a cool name. So I'm now in my second year. Have now got an ABN number registered. So in my second year as Very Handheld Productions. So all in all, since last year, since the camera came, I've done the videos that I've got in my portfolio is including other stuff, my own stuff. So there's probably done 30 or 50 projects.
Yeah.
Just everything. So in my second year, trying to develop Very Handheld Productions. And Cairns is a very good, it's the best place to, because it's smaller.
Yeah.
You can meet, the best place to network. And I just do that. It's very good because when you meet new people through the theatre, things just happen for some reason. And I take those opportunities. People will ask me, what do you do, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I just learned from the idea of watching these documentaries about Los Angeles. What's Los Angeles? There's a thing in Los Angeles where young directors, they go to a certain restaurant. They're very classy restaurants, and apparently they go into the finest directors are in there, the best producers, and there's a term called working the room.
Right.
So you edge your way into meeting a producer and a director at the right moment.
Right.
And you tell them your idea. So I'm pretty much working Cairns. So I do that at every opportunity, but not in a bombastic way.
Yeah.
And just do it as it comes. So, and I love being in Cairns. That's why I'm glad I came back.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting view on Cairns because there is still, I think a few people do still tend to think of it as this town that's sort of stuck halfway between its history as, a cane town, a fishing town, an industry town, and it's sort of become a bit more of a lately it's sort of become more of a tourist town, perhaps at the expense of those other aspects of it. And it's it's the place that in some respects it's the place that people come to go elsewhere in the region. Like, you land in Cairns and you go to Port Douglas or the Daintree or up to the Tablelands and that sort of thing. It's that kind of stopover town. You sometimes don't realise that the energy that and the resources that the town itself does have.
There's a filmmakers movement. We're trying to get a movement going in Cairns to make it our version of. It's going to be our version of Hollywood.
Okay.
So we're trying to make a small industry here.
Right.
For various filmmakers that I've met. So we've had a few meetings here and there. We've met people. Screen Queensland have come up to do some workshops with us, and we've met, and we've aired our ideas. We want to make a small film industry here. Yeah. For filmmakers, like a studio. Yeah. And I think Cairns is suited for that. And if we, I don't know who's going to start it, but everyone's just talking at the moment. But it's buzzing. Yeah. It's a very buzzing idea. And I love that idea. We just got to get enough filmmakers interested in the idea, where we can have maybe a studio space where everyone can make their own little projects. And if it's a big dream where we can have these facilities one day. Yeah. As like Roadshow, Movie World. Yeah. So we want to have our Movie World up here, where Hollywood can come and use our facilities. But that depends on the city council if they go with it. Yeah. Not to slag them off, but get the wheel rolling.
Yeah, so it can be tough sometimes, I guess, dealing with existing institutions who've got their own momentum and trying to harness it and redirect a portion of it toward what you're doing. I guess that can it can always be a little bit tricky because they've got their own ideas and they've got their own momentum on their existing projects. So
because I think film would go hand in hand with what council tourism industry here.
Yeah,
because we can sell Cairns and it informs the tourism industry. And if our films here get shown other places, other film festivals down south.
Yeah.
It's just visual. It's a visual postcard.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of being a Sydney boy and then watching The Matrix when it came out in the mid-90s and just seeing so many of those places and going, I know where that is, I know where that is, I know where that is. It's even if in the movie it was basically sort of like a virtual reconjuring of America, it was still a thing and I'm sure there was at the time a fair bit of buzz about the fact that The Matrix was made in Sydney. So it, even though chunks of the later movies were made overseas, I guess that still didn't do the town any harm. Yeah,
and it was all three of them, and then now the Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah,
or the prequels. Sorry.
Yes, and Great Gatsby as well was Sydney. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Well, we've had a lot of fantastic films Hollywood movies up here. From Sniper. Tom Berenger
and Billy Zane,
and I could tell it was Cairns because they left the Queensland Rails insignia on the train. I said that's Stanley Creek.
I'm going to have to watch that bloody movie at some point. I know of it, but I sadly have not yet seen it.
It's right in front of you, Queensland Rail.
Yeah.
And there's been you've had Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, the remake with Marlon Brando, Val Kilmer, and who was the actual protagonist in that one? David Thewlis. Yes.
And a bit of trivia, probably someone will know it anyway. The Dog Man, played by Once the Warriors.
Tamira Morrison. Yeah. Again, that Island of Dr. Moreau is a movie I haven't seen, but God, buggy hell.
I didn't realise that Jake the Muss is a dog. And now he's in Django Fett.
Yes, that was. I was bloody stoked to see him in that.
And it was weird.
And then all the clones later on in the third movie.
Yeah, and I thought, how many Tamira Morrisons do you want?
Can there be such a thing as too many Tamira Morrisons? I ask.
No, I love Tamira Morrison.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's a dream that it can only be done if we all pull together, filmmakers.
Yeah.
And I've met a lot of through tropical arts, a lot of professional actors.
Yeah.
Within tropical arts, and they've I don't know whether I should name names.
Go ahead. If I'm sure you're not about to call them names or anything like that. So go ahead.
I met a lovely man named Anthony Ring. He's in everything. So a really good movie by another film director. Throwback.
I was just thinking about that, especially when you're talking about the local scene. Travis Bain, I think.
Yes, Travis Bain, and he did. It's a fun movie.
I have a friend of mine loaned me the DVD at one point, and I'm hoping to get Travis on the podcast as well.
Yeah.
I haven't. Sad to say, I have not actually seen the movie yet. I have given the DVD back to my mate. I didn't want to, sort of be one of those things where he gives it to me and then never sees it again. But it definitely looks like a fun little, adventure / horror film.
It's Vernon Wells. He's got Vernon Wells in there.
Who was from Mad Max, I think.
Yep, and the Commando movies. Commando. Well, that's only one. Commando.
Yeah.
And I think it was Schwarzenegger. He was in. Yeah, that's the same one, isn't it?
Yeah, he was. Was he he was the villain in that one, wasn't he? Yeah.
Aussie villain.
Yeah, I remember him sort of going off the rails kind of at the end and screaming at Matrix how he was going to kill him now, and
So I think that movie's Travis Payne has done a really great job with it, and it's prompted us, everyone, other filmmakers to follow that lead.
Yeah.
and to show that, we are talented filmmakers here in Cairns, and Travis Payne is the best example.
Yeah.
And a lot of other filmmakers will come through, hopefully, including myself.
Yeah.
But I've got to. I'm in a development stage, so learning how to get used to the story writing. The getting producers and getting funding.
Yeah.
Is how to do all of that. But for the time being, I just love being a backyard filmmaker.
Yeah.
Have a bit of fun with it, and get a bit more serious as I get used to it. Yeah. So so a lot of Doctor Who is a very big influence. I love all that. I know everything about Doctor Who, even the things that people don't want to know about. So basically, what I've noticed, I grew up on 70s Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I've noticed the writers of the classic series were ex-scientists.
Yeah.
They created the Cyberman. He was a scientist.
Right.
Ted Pedler. He was the creator. And a lot of those early Doctor Who is very intelligent because they were written at a time of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Especially 60s Doctor Who. If you notice, the Daleks, the very first story was could have been a commentary on Americanism.
Yeah.
The Daleks represented Americanism. So
it's an interesting thing to think about, especially nowadays. The Daleks kind of get seen, especially with those sort of the overtones of superiority and racial purity. A lot of people will characterise the Daleks as space Nazis rather than the other side of the coin as the American imperialist.
Because I've got a whole wall full of 70s Doctor Who there.
Yep. I can.
and a lot of the writers that were lefties.
Yeah.
So a lot of those stories were written by what do you call them? Protesters or
activists.
Activists, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think New Doctor Who it sort of doesn't have that momentum anymore. It's now just
it's entertainment.
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
But it's still Doctor Who, and I love the fact that. And there was a dream come through Doctor Who with a bigger budget.
Yeah.
And that was always my dream.
Yeah.
And to see just to see Daleks moving around, not so wobbly.
Yeah.
And that they can manoeuvre and so Doctor Who is my number one thing, and Dementia Man I think comes out of that as well. All of those there's science fiction movies. Doctor Who is the first one, but science fiction movies, John Carpenter, Red Dwarf, it's all a mix of that. That's it. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. So, just to ask on putting you sort of on the paid to play spectrum, you're making Dimension Man, which is of course a labour of love that you are hoping someone will pick up. Yeah. You're still doing the work for Tropical Arts for the Tanks.
Yeah.
And I believe you're also doing some shooting work for a local dance troupe.
Yes.
Is that right?
Trial of Pacific. If I could sell that, Trial of Pacific.
You certainly can. Please feel free to plug away if it's,
Yeah. So they're a group of young people, they're traditional dancers, are run by a lovely couple that have run it out of their own pocket. And they get hired out to different venues with traditional dancing.
Yeah.
So it's Samoan, Tongan, Torres Strait Islanders, and indigenous.
Yeah.
So it's with, and then they video that for their website, and then so that's right up my alley. So
yeah,
I met with the guy. His name's Barry, and he liked Well, I was doing work for a non-profit organisation, through Volunteers Australia, and they're from the internship program for Hyapsung University in South Korea. Dr. Kim, and so I'm doing volunteer stuff for him.
Yeah.
And I met Barry through him, and it just went from there. Blah 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 blah. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And would you like to do this? I said yes, love to. And now I'm working with them, getting to know those guys. They're very talented as well with video editing. Very talented young men, and I'm the old school guy that comes in and and now we started up another Shakespeare with our Tropical Arts, and I've just at the moment I've just put together my next score for that. Just had a meeting the other night, so I just presented my new score to the director, Avril Duck. So we're doing Macbeth. So
Right.
So I can say that here at home. So I look forward to doing Macbeth, tragic drama. But at the moment, I'm in the middle of writing episode 2 for Dimension Man. Doing that, doing the Shakespeare, doing the Child Pacific thing. Still working with Hyapsung University.
Yeah.
And so that's all things are happening all at once. So it's probably been the busiest time in my life since 1995, I suppose.
Wow, it sounds like you've really you've come a good long way, and you've really made it for yourself, or at least you've got a great place. You're in a great place right now to really be developing from.
Yeah, and see, I used to move around a lot, and ever since I settled down, I've been in this unit for 3 years.
Yeah.
So now you can't get things done when you're moving around. So
no.
And I'm glad I found this place. I'm meeting people all the time.
Yeah.
The only problem with that is I don't want to be doing too many things.
Yeah.
And as my friend Barry said, I've got my fingers in a lot of pies. So, I got to know Rob Pine.
Yeah.
Meeting people are different. Mainly through Tropical Arts. And Cairns is such a wonderful place. It's so condensed.
Yeah.
That everyone knows everyone.
Yeah.
You get to another function or another organisation. Oh, it's fancy seeing you here.
Yeah.
So I always say that now. But that's what I love about Cairns.
Yeah. And at least it means that when you go to somewhere new, odds on you'll find somebody who will be able to, because they already know you, they'll be able to ease you into this process of getting to know all the unfamiliar faces, because you know that person and they know everybody else. And
and I think about, especially with filmmakers, it's all about helping one another.
Yeah.
So, and I like to help other, like with the 12 Pacific, they're helping me find some stuff to do, so that's a bit of work too with that. And I just love meeting people, combining, sharing ideas. And not only with filmmakers, artists, local artists as well, like traditional artists or painting artists.
Yeah.
I love to make, when I'm bored, I like to make a little video. So I'm making a video for them.
Right.
And I'm making a video for myself, so it sort of works all around.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think I want to be in any other place from Cairns. So we'll just see what happens in the future, because there is it's growing. The film industry here is not an industry. It's industry, I suppose you'd call it. Film culture.
Yeah.
That's the best word.
Yeah.
There's a growing film culture here through the film festivals. Mission Beach has one. I know, I just love being here. Brisbane too has one, but because it's a slightly larger place, it's a bit harder. for me anyway. But
Yeah.
Cairns is much easier. You run into people more easily. So it's a bit hard sometimes. While I'm making Dementia Man with no budget,
Yeah.
it's a bit. I can't. It's a bit hard.
Yeah.
I'm still not making money, but I do it anyway. I love that idea of making a movie on a shoestring, because that's where John Carpenter, the Terminator, was made.
Yeah.
On a relatively small budget, like $1 million. I'm not sure something like $1 million, or for Hollywood that's a small budget. So I learned from John Carpenter because the opening sequence with the skulls. You see all the skulls being crushed, and
now are we going back to Terminator, James Cameron? Yes, the skulls being crushed underneath the treads of the big hunter-killer robot. Yeah.
When I first started looking at videos in my late teens, I started looking at making of on TV, the making of specials, and the videos, and I realised that those skulls were actually, he made different sized skulls, smaller skulls put in the back. To give it that sense of scale, and I didn't realise until I actually saw the making of.
Yeah, I remember watching, I'm not sure if it was Terminator or Terminator 2. I think it probably was Terminator because they doubtlessly had a bigger budget for 2. But one of the, again, that future scene that opened it, you had the shot of the main flying hunter-killer in the foreground, and you could see another one in the background moving, and in the making of, James Cameron said, that is actually just a cardboard silhouette. That's not a model back there. It's just the outline of the thing moving along in the background. Yeah. So it's just one of those things you sort of look at it and you go, okay, right. So they can only make the one model, but that's how they made it look like they had more. So all these neat little things that you do.
And I think the one scene that it was that movie that prompted me to I want to make movies, because the very last scene, I turned on the commentary of the Terminator Blu-ray version.
Yes.
And I put on the comment. When I watch it over and over, and I watch it with the commentary, and you find out more things about it.
Yeah.
The scene where you see the Terminator gets crushed, and then the Hamilton says, you're terminated, and the scene where the smoke is, you see the red eye dying, and the smoke coming through. James Cameron was explaining that they ran out of time, and the studio set wrap up.
Yeah.
So they had to do something really quick. So the metal crushing the eye is foam that they stuck together. And the smoke coming out of that was a guy with a cigarette blowing smoke through the other end. And I didn't.
Yeah.
So from that moment on, I said, I'm going to make movies, but do it in a creative way.
Yeah. Because you're listening to things, you just realise how, because you don't know how they're being made, and you're just lost in the story and the fantasy that these movies create, that you don't think that this is you if you think about it, you imagine that there must be some sort of smoke machine in the background, or some sort of carefully rigged element to create that effect, when it can be done as simply as a guy just standing behind it with a lit fag and blowing,
Because I knew there was a smoke machine, but I didn't think it was that kind of smoke machine.
No, you don't.
I thought that was so cool. And I think the early films of James Cameron I liked the most, and then it became big, so CGI came in, which is cool. But he's still I think James Cameron's still a brilliant guy. Yeah,
I think I will say this, having seen Avatar, he still does seem to be a very heart on his sleeve kind of guy, if you know what I mean. You don't get the feeling that he's perhaps got a bit lost in the process the way that maybe Ridley Scott has.
Yeah.
If you compare, the obvious thing that I guess people point out would be the differences between Alien and Prometheus, where Prometheus was visually spectacular, but the rest of it was kind of a bit
empty.
A bit what would you?
Empty or soulless?
Yeah, a bit empty and a bit maybe. The word that came to mind was addled, a little bit mixed up, a little bit unsure of its footing. Whereas, say what you will about Avatar, it still had this strong, it knew what it was about, and it didn't care if it was obvious or cheesy or what have you. And I think maybe a lot of people sort of compared it to a kids animated film from Don Bluth Studios, Fern Gully, and said, it's basically, or even, it's a remake of Pocahontas, but maybe
Dances with Wolves in Space.
And Dances with Wolves in Space, but I guess, there is that obvious parallel that you can take, but maybe it's less of the reason you draw these conclusions is less of because of the parallels between plot line and more just because those films are they know what they're about, they're kind of obvious what they're about, but they're still straight up entertaining, tug on your heartstrings kind of films.
And Hollywood has to make money, of course.
Yeah, true.
As much as I hate that.
Yeah.
It's just because basically Hollywood to me is run by accountants.
Yeah. And
unless you're James Cameron, you can, or George Lucas.
Yeah.
But going back to what prompted me to make films here, I saw The Elephant Man. Who was the director? David Lynch, I think, was it?
I'm not sure.
I think it was David Lynch when he made The Elephant. And what struck me about that one, I didn't realise it was made in 1981. And then I realised the creative decisions that go behind the movie, such as why it was shot in black and white, and then it's The Elephant Man. So I realised the best directors who are creative.
Yeah.
So David Lynch it might be a bit too much for most people. Like he did Eraserhead.
Which, and I've got to admit, I've not seen Eraserhead, heard a lot about it, and I know that's sort of that's considered a go-to film for David Lynch, if you want to sort of get an idea of what he's about.
And sometimes the Naked Lunch, but that made me step back a bit. So, okay, typewriter coming to life. Talk. But anyway, with The Elephant Man, I want to actually make when I get more into the flow of making more professional type movies, I want to make a black and white one as well, because what I noticed about Elephant Man, black and white evokes so many things. Because it was the Elephant Man, that was his life. Yeah. His life was very dull and dreary. So I got that straight away. Being an artistic person myself, that drew me to movies, because it was the idea, and it was the imagery that most people, when you think of 19th century London, the Industrial Revolution, you think black and white photos. Yeah. And I think that was the way to go, because it evoked the imagery of what you think of that period in history in London. And because of that, if they'd have done it in colour, wouldn't have the same impact. Yeah. So I want to make a black and white movie. I'm starting to do another movie, little projects here and there in black and white. Yeah. So Elephant Man and a movie called Ghost of Mrs. Muir.
Heard of it,
not the TV series, but the movie. So certain movies, certain themes should be made in black and white. Yeah. So I think there should be more black and white movies made.
Yeah, it's a way, it's a technique, and just because it's because a lot of people automatically associate black and white with antiquated and therefore not of interest. That doesn't mean it doesn't work in its own way on with a particular story and a particular way of making a movie. Yeah.
So all the I suppose all the directors I was attracted to is David Lynch, of course. Star Wars, George Lucas, but mainly the artistic ones like Terry Gilliam. Yeah, I absolutely love Brazil.
Oh, that was a tough little film. I remember seeing it when I was young and sort of feeling like my mind was kind of being bent watching it, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
And when you watch that movie, it's like how you, when you were a child, how you would imagine playing in the world. Yeah. So I see it as that, and I still have those kind of imaginations.
Yeah, where we all wish we're sort of Sam Lowry and able to go to these incredible places and be the knight in shining armor with wings on his back, and yeah.
So I'm come from that school of artistic directors, and provoking your ideas to audiences through visual styles. If you know how to use colours, the right actors, and it's getting what's in your head and making it into visual reality.
Yeah.
I love that idea. Just to think, that the stuff that was in George Lucas's head is now a multi-million-dollar business. Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, I sort of, for me anyway, art, film, and music are all one thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes my movies, some of the stuff in Dimension Man is a little bit left field.
Yeah.
And me as a person, I say things that are a bit left field and weird to that. And that's like, when I was at school, people used to call me weird, and I used to hate that. But now I take that as a compliment, because Terry Gilliam was seen as weird to most, I suppose you call the popcorn movie crowd.
Yeah.
They just want to see a movie, things explode.
Yeah.
There's hero, and they just want to get out of it.
Yeah, they want to be thrilled and entertained, and that's enough for them. Thank you very much.
And then there's that crowd that wants to see those kind of movies, thought-provoking movies.
Yeah.
And I think that's there's nothing wrong with popcorn movies. You just want to go see a movie, bit of eye candy for an hour or so. And I think there's room enough in this world for all types of moviegoers.
Absolutely.
There's so often crossovers. Like Batman.
Yeah.
Is a good example of the merging of those two. A popcorn movie, you just want to see things explode and a lot of fighting and action.
Yeah.
But Batman as a character, he's a very intelligent. He fights crime with his intelligence and his money and things like that. So it's an intelligent. The first Batman, the 1989 movie, I thought is very intelligently done. Those themes of duality.
Yeah.
Batman and Joker they're basically the two sides of one coin.
Yeah.
And in a weird sort of twisted way, they are best friends.
Yeah.
So I love to explore that in my next movies. But at the moment, I'm just doing comedy to loosen up my director. But this is my first exploration into character development and how those characters react to each other. How they would talk to each other.
Yeah.
If you put them in a real situation. So fictional characters, you have to draw from reality.
Yeah.
So when I was writing the first draft of Dimension Man, before I even had the actors, I write it in a way that this character would say it in this sort of I write them a full rounded person.
Yeah.
For example, like a person would say certain things a certain way.
Yeah.
It's them because they speak a certain way, even with your back turned.
Yeah.
And they know it's me if I'm in a crowded room, and they hear me.
Yeah.
So I say a certain way. It's even in my voice, and so I try to put that in. I'm trying to exercise that in the script.
Yeah.
Training myself. And with Dimension Man, Sam is played by Andrew Warren. He was one of the members of Tropical Arts, Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I met him in one of the plays. I knew he was a Doctor Who fan when he sat down. I said, I like your shirt. He was a Doctor Who fan. Different ages. I'm old school Doctor Who. He's only 20.
Yeah.
But Yeah, we share that, and we have that in common.
Yeah.
And then I met his friend. He's got a friend named Cameron Ezzy. He plays Zane. So Sam's character is the geeky. He invents things. And he loves the unknown, UFOs and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So he's very jumpy and and excitable about mysteries and Zane. He's more the grounded character.
Yeah.
And I like to mix in visually in stories, even in real life. Opposites attract. And visually, if you look at the characters, even with the costumes that I bought, I wanted to. You can see their personality in the way they dress. Sam's character is very bright colours.
Yeah.
And he dresses like Doctor Who. And Zane he's like the boy from the other side of the tracks. But they're friends. So and that happens in life anyway. Odd friendships happen.
Yeah.
So, and then there's the third character, which is Peter. He's the Korean guy.
Yeah.
He's the laid back one.
Yeah.
Even more laid back than Zane. But he's like the trooper.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I've seen of Dimension Man, Zane is the more reserved one, whereas Peter's the sort of that in between place between Sam's energy and Zane's reservation, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
He's the combination of both. And I just look back and I say, yes, I've done.
Yeah.
I'm starting to learn how to write characters and incidentally, Andrew Warren he's a writer. He's an extremely good science fiction writer. He's told me some about his stories, and we're into the same things about Nikola Tesla and hard science, I suppose you'd call it. What do you call it? Science. I suppose the scientific community, the serious sort of view, they'd call it pseudoscience. With the CERN machine.
Yeah.
The
the Large Hadron Collider. So talking about things, I guess that if you were to think of Star Wars as what some might call science fantasy, I mean, it's basically got spaceships and faster than light travel and high technology, but they're basically fantastic elements as much as the Force and the lightsabers are. Whereas the hard science at least tries to give everything a grounding, and then it's hard science tends to be, I guess, what they call speculative fiction, where they sort of say, okay, let's take an unusual premise and then reason out what life would be like if this thing were real,
So that reflects in the in Dimension Man. Dimension Man is it's more, everything is from a young person's point of view.
Yeah.
The three young guys. So I want to project that movie the way a teenager would see the world.
Yeah.
And that science fiction kind of world.
Yeah.
And Zane, it just happened that way on screen. You could tell that he would probably read about astrophysics, those scientific America.
Yeah.
He's a philosophical type teenager. And Sam is obviously the geek, the Comic-Con.
Yeah, and if he makes if he gets involved in science, it's because he wants to build something and test things out. He won't, read about what others are doing and try and get an idea of the bigger picture. He just wants to get in and tinker and fiddle and see what happens.
And Peter is the drifter, so he's so the representation of each other. I didn't know how to write Peter, but it just happened that way anyway. I just realised he's a combination of Sam and Zane.
The relationship just needed that third person there.
So I want to explore that in the next story that I'm writing, and it's a good kind of challenge. I'll run into a block, creative block.
Mm.
I'll let it go for a while and I'll come back to it, write an idea down.
Yeah.
That's the final clink in the chain.
Mm.
But ever since I met those 3 guys, it's come to life. This is the first time characters in my head have come to life.
Yeah.
Off the page and on the screen.
Mm.
And when we started shooting last year, I wrote this story, but it was very. I wrote it as we went along.
Mm.
Wrote another 1 page, and we did it the next week.
Yeah.
But this year, I'm just writing the story first, and then.
Mm.
But anyway, I was very loose and very. I'd like to be because I did a bit of acting as well.
Yeah.
The creativity that goes into it, building a character from the ground up.
Mm.
So we all shared a common interest, and I think we're pretty much on the same page.
Yeah.
And Andrew Warren and Cameron and Peter are all natural actors.
Mm.
Peter, incidentally, the Korean guy, he's a movie filmmaker in Korea. He's actually worked on big multi-billion-dollar
Oh, bloody
movies.
heck.
And he didn't tell me until his last day of shooting.
Mm.
I said, oh my God, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He was on a Korean science fiction movie called Area 54 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then he showed me photographs of him on the set with these big actors. And I said,
Oh, bloody heck.
why didn't you tell me this before?
Because you probably would have been intimidated as all get out, knowing that he was, there was this guy who was just there through the shooting, and you probably would have been so scared to tell him what to do. Yeah.
But those guys, they were brilliant.
Yeah.
I told them to ad-lib and add things to it if you want to.
Mm.
And I basically said, just be yourselves as you would. Because in real life, what you see, the argument they have on screen, that's just them being them. That's how they talk to each other.
Yeah. Mm.
And I like that idea. And if you notice the opening, it's a little clubhouse, it's a caravan.
Yeah.
And it's very cheaply shot with a handheld type thing. But I wanted that idea because that's... In episode 1, there's going to be 2 episodes, but in episode 1, I create that feeling of immersing the audience into a teenager's world.
Yeah.
And the camera behaves like it's handheld, and it's...
Yeah.
And that's they're not worried about anything, so...
No.
It's free from the still camera.
Yeah.
And that's... I wanted to give that feel of it in this clubhouse, and then the camera is a third person.
Yeah.
But if you've noticed, when they went, Zane was not interested in going with them.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah. So the other 2 go in, and if you noticed, the moment they go into the fantastical part of it, it's a tripod shot.
Yeah.
So the moment it goes to fantasy, it's Hollywood territory.
Yeah.
So all the handheld stuff is grounded in reality.
Yeah.
So I want to shift that, so the gradual shift into the fantasy element of the movie. So the first time the audience sees the magic door, as Peter calls it, it's a Hollywood looking thing then. So episode 2 will be, traditional tripod, camera on a tripod.
Yeah.
Framed, that sort of thing. And then at the end of the story, when they come back into our universe, the camera goes back to handheld. So I wanted to, like with our Wizard of Oz, we shot in black and white in their world, and then when they went into the fantastical, it was in colour.
Yeah.
And for that time period, that worked very well.
Yeah.
So,
although I think one thing that I guess I didn't realise until I saw The Wizard of Oz again recently, it's not exactly black and white, it's sepia. So it's almost brown and white, if you know what I mean. So it's not just, say, trying to evoke an old world or black and white filmmaking. It's almost like it's trying to evoke the older photos that you would see of the West and the 18th, 19th century, where they weren't black and white; they were that sort of very brown colour. So it was, there was almost a statement within a statement that you just sort of, looking at it all of a sudden, it's like, okay, so it's not just trying to say this is a black and white film. It's trying to look even older than that, parochial isn't the right word, but look, anyway, Des, I hate to say it because this has been a great chat so far, but we're kind of coming to the end of our time. I think we've hit over an hour of recorded chat already. So to wind things up, if people after hearing this sort of want to track you down and find out more about you and your work and progress on Dimension Man so far, where can they find you?
And down the street, and I'm the guy with the headphones. I listen to my music all the time.
Yeah.
So if people have seen me around, it's the guy with the headphones and in black.
Yep.
Just come up to me and just tap me on the shoulder. I'm with Tropical Arts, but I'll give you my details. My email is I'm on Facebook as Desmond Green with a Z, Dezmond. Just type that in and Green, and my Facebook will come up, and you'll see in the corner Dimension Man webpage.
Yeah.
Have a look. It's deconstructed slightly. I'm trying to construct it again.
Yeah.
There's photos in there. The episode is on there if you want to have a look at it. Because I haven't cleared the music in it, that's the only place you can look at it.
Yeah.
But check it out. Check the photos out. And if you just want to have a talk to me, or my email is glowcapscreen.desart, D-E-Z-A-R-T, @gmail.com. I have a YouTube channel, Dez Green, D-E-Z, Green. So have a look at my videos, and that's how I can be contacted.
Well, Des, thank you very much for your time and coming on the show. It's been wonderful chatting with you, especially having the chance to geek out a little bit about film.
Yeah, just to empty all that babble out of my head. I can go on for 2 weeks.
Just ask my wife, so can I. Thanks again, Des.
Thank you.